Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Imperator Rome 2.0. Now, I haven't played this game since the first, month of its release. It just didn't really click with me. But now, 2.0 has come out, and a lot of things have been redesigned and reworked into the game to the point where it's so radically different in many of its core mechanics from the original game that I've played at release that I'm tempted to call this like Imperator 2, basically, right? The most obvious change that comes with 2.0, and not necessarily just with 2.0, I'm very well aware that this game hasn't been just sitting on the shelf somewhere at Paradox and only now have they picked it up and changed it. A lot of the changes happened over time. There were a lot of patches, a lot of fixes, so on and so forth. But this seems to be perceived by the general community as a sort of second chance for Imperator, that now they can sort of re-release the game not in a literal sense, but in a sort of community perception sense, right? A lot of people are going to try it again and see what they think of it now. So re-release in that sense. And, well, what are some of the biggest things that have changed from the first month of its release to today, which is, there's quite a bit of a time distance between those things? Well, I'm going to hopefully try and answer that in this video very briefly, and I'm just giving you my first impressions of what the game's like. Is it worth your time? Is it worth picking up? Is it much better than when it was initially released? That said, though, I haven't played the game in a while. I don't understand all of the gameplay mechanics. I'm probably going to make some mistakes and all of that stuff. The issue here isn't how in-depth and well I know the game. You can find that with you can find out information about the game from other people that play it a lot more regularly. For me, I'm going to try and give you a sort of perspective of the person that's coming back to the game, and what are some of the things that you can look forward to that you might be excited for. So, with that said, let's go. The most obvious change is that there are very little magical powers anymore. I'll give you a very, very simple example right now. Culture, for example. You used to be able to magically change the culture of people by spending god points, effectively. This is now gone. There are no more, I guess the equivalent to EU4 would be bird power, paper power, and sword power, right? Military, diplomatic, and administrative powers. There is none of that anymore. Now it's manpower and treasury and very tangible, real things. Magic is sort of put aside, and I use the word magic even though this is, it's a historical Paradox Grand Strategy game. Those were quite literally magical powers that you had. I mean, you could also influence the economy by demoting people or promoting people to become from tribesmen to freemen, or from freemen to citizens, and so on, using nothing more than magical powers. Now, it is obviously different. Culture is no longer that simple. Oh no. So, for example, we have the Etruscans here, and they have the right of intermarriage, which speeds up cultural integration and increases cultural happiness, but we can change the civic rights for the Etruscan culture group, and we can make them nobles. They have rights granted, they become happy, they lose right of intermarriage. I'm not quite sure why that happens. I think it's because they become nobles they no longer really need. Yeah, they can promote to all prototypes that exists, and that basically means that there is, they have the same rights as everyone, as the most privileged classes in the Empire. Great. Culture mode is here. You can see, you can check that out. But there's also decisions you can do, and you can give them different rights, or take away different rights from them, and that's about all. You're not gonna walk up to a bunch of Etruscans and go, right, you're Romans now. I mean, the Romans sort of did that, but not that directly and not using godly powers. No, it's a process that takes time. You do have Romanization. I'm using Rome strictly as a sort of stereotypical and prime example of these things, but you get the point. It is a thing, but takes time. It's a process, and not one that you can just speed up by spending any political influence or any untangible sort of magical, mystical things that you've gathered. Obviously, there's a whole host of new mechanics, such as omens are now different. There is a reliquary system where you have these, I almost want to call them like the artifacts from CK2. They sort of give off that kind of vibe, except instead of giving buffs to characters, these give buffs to your whole empire, which is really, really great. Religious unity, omen power, and so on. Those have stayed roughly the same. You now have holy sites as well, and you have the ability to desecrate holy sites, including your own holy sites, which is a little bit weird to me, and I don't understand that. But the game seems to be, in general, a whole lot more complex. Buildings now seem to be actually kind of important. There's different kinds, and you don't just build one type all over the place, because, you know, back when the game was initially released, you didn't have all of these, and you used to just build, like, tax offices and, where are they, and barracks, and, you know, you'd be fine. A little bit of money, loads of troops, the occasional fort, maybe, but it was all very simple. Now, sort of added layers of complexion have been added here, and that's not what I meant to say at all. Added layers of complexity. Complexion is something very, very different. Military has also been reworked to the point where you no longer have a standing force to begin with. Currently we have levies. Legions we don't have the right to raise yet. Now, we need to enact laws. This is something that I don't really like, the interface here. It shows you basically all of the military traditions. And it's good to see that there's different ones. Kind of would like to see maybe a few more, but I don't really need to know about the Persian rural traditions, because the likelihood of me embracing the Greco-Persian influence, not that great. And, you know, maybe when I do this could pop up, but until I do, maybe I prefer to just see these and these two appear and then this appear from there, but never mind. Technology has also been changed. You now acquire innovation points. How do you get innovation points? Well, it says right there. And you unlock stuff with innovation points. Pretty darn simple. You have one innovation point, you click on the thing, and it uses an innovation point, and there you go. Most of these things at the start cost one innovation point. Matter of fact, I think all of these things cost one innovation point. Maybe there's something that costs two, but from what I can see, all of them cost one. Right, moving on to diplomacy, that has stayed roughly the same. Diplomacy was never really a sore spot for Imperator. In some ways it was, and there are some changes to diplomacy, but more or less, it is exactly what you'd expect it to be. You can sell territory, you have Casus Belli, action. Well, you don't have action options as well in terms of declare war and stuff. Alliance options, access options, so on and so forth. You can also change the stance, the diplomatic stance of your empire. Currently I'm in a sort of expansionist move, I guess. A mood, even. I'm sorry, English. I probably shouldn't be recording at like 2 AM, but yeah, it is what it is. Trade comfortably similar to what it was before. You import resources, export resources, get money out of it. Fairly simple. What I have noticed is, for example, let's just show this and stop just talking nonsense. Let's say I want to import something. Let's say I want to import something that we don't have in the capital, such as Do we have stone? We don't have stone. What does it do? Local slave happiness. And if we have surplus, it does that. Not great. Amber, sure, let's go. Let's import amber. We can't because there isn't any source nearby that we can import from. All right. Marble, what does that do? Local noble happiness. All right, sure, make the nobles happy. Marble is available from Dodicapolis in Etruria. Problem is, the Etrurians won't sell. They will lose their capital bonus if they do, and also they don't exactly like us. So, no, you can't get marble. This used to be a lot more dumbed down in the past, where the AI would just sell you everything you want and be like, oh, alright, whatever, I don't care. And you can also get pretty much anything you want. Now, range is more of an issue. Relations are more of an issue. The availability of the resources is more of an issue. So on and so forth. Glad to see that. Moving population. Apparently can't happen. Oh well. Why can I not move? I was going to make the point that you no longer spend magical points to do this, but... Oh, because Rome is a holy site, I can't move. I can't move population to this territory. Okay, fine. Buildings, as I said before, loads of new ones. There's also Great Wonders, which were added some time ago. I know this is not a new thing, but they increase in tiers, and all sorts of these tiny little things that you need to pay attention to. And now that I've given you some rough examples like this, I want to talk a little bit about the quality of the game itself on a more sort of abstract level. Am I having fun with it? Ultimately, it's fun to talk about the in and outs of economy and the fact that you can change the amount of stuff, the amount of gold you pay for everything. This was a feature back in the day as well, mind you. Or the government, for example, and yeah, here it is. The Optimates, the Populares, and the Boni. Yeah, it's great. What is this? Rome pays 5, I'm assuming this is tyranny, yes, and 25 of this. Every head of a great family will gain 5 loyalty for 16 months. Their approval will increase, but the national freedom and happiness will drip down. And that's how you can influence these. Alright, it's great to talk about this, and like the 5% up, 5% down here and there. Is the game ultimately a lot better and a lot more fun? Yes, in the sense that the problem with Rome, with Imperator Rome, used to be that it was as wide as the ocean, as deep as a... not even a puddle, like one of those tiny little puddles on the side of the road after a rain. Yeah. Every Gallic nation felt like every other Gallic nation, which would be okay, because they're all sort of similar, and then you realise that every nation and every tribe here felt like every tribe everywhere else. And then you went over to India and realised that they don't actually play that much differently from Carthage, Rome, Macedon, or anyone else. And sure, there's different flavour text, and sure, the modifiers are a little bit different, but yeah, it's ultimately all similar. Now, is it that much different now? Well, realistically, let me just... No, it's not one of these. Where is it? Let me find it. It is under... Political? No, it's under government, but it's not here. Government types, there we go. There's 3 government types. That means 3 very, very distinct ways of playing, and then cultural differences between places is still, you know... It's not great, it's not terrible. What about the actual gameplay, right? What about the actual managing of the Empire, expanding wars, and so on and so forth? Well, combat, I still praise it to this day, one of the best combat-wise games out there from Paradox. I really, really enjoy the combat of Imperator Rome. It's a lot less random, you get to pick your strategies. If anything, I would love to make it a little bit even more interactive with maybe determining how aggressive my units get, and maybe determining formations, not just like picking them from the sidebar, but you know, maybe even adding some maneuvers and stuff like that you can personally influence in battles. I would like that. I genuinely would. And they sort of added that because fleets now actually don't just move around and fight. You do have tactics, great, but there's now all sorts of things like this. Like there's different ships, flanking cohorts, secondary cohorts. Interesting stuff, right? Interesting stuff. The game has, in itself, has incorporated into itself now a lot of more just stuff. A lot more stuff for you to click, a lot more stuff for you to manage. It's a lot more complicated than it was upon its release. However, and there is a however, the problem is that in its efforts to just add more things into it, a lot of those things get sort of shoved aside into the realm of irrelevance. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example here. Decision. Right of inheritance, right to enter legal contracts, protection against torture, right of intermarriage. These are important in that the characters that are, for example, Hebrew, Roman, Sabellian, Etruscan, and so on, they can now do different things that they wouldn't be able to if you didn't do these cultural decisions. But so these cultural decisions are important in that sense, but ultimately, does that really matter all that much? I mean, there's loads of characters here, right? Loads of characters. Do I care if he can marry her? Do I? I mean, I'll care about, out of all of these, I'll care about probably 2 or 3 of them. The 2 consuls, maybe a governor, maybe a military general or a navy admiral. That's about it. Most of these other people are going to be irrelevant. Take a look at sort of a character and family system from CK2. Everyone's important. Children can be very important because of the claims that they have and the stuff that they inherit and the interactions that you have with them. Now, this kid is just... it's a kid, like, I don't care. Doesn't have anything. It's loyal. Alright, great. The 1-year-old is loyal to me. Terrific. You know what I mean? Perhaps a better example. Technology. Very important, right? National citizen output plus 3%. Okay. Citizens, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of population. One of these types now has a 3% bonus to its output. So instead of providing me, I think this influences pretty much everything here, like research and manpower and stuff. Instead of providing me 63 manpower, instead of providing me like 59 or 60 manpower, or it's not even that, it's like 62 or something, wasn't it? 61? That's roughly it. They now provide me with 63. Does that really matter all that much? Not really. Trade. I mean, sure, I need to fill out all these 6 slots, and I will, but... Cloth. Local noble happiness plus 4%. Alright, they're now at 77. They're going to be at 81. Hooray. Do I care? Not really. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the whole game is just filled with irrelevant stuff. It's just that it's not as impactful as you might think. Take a look at, like, CK2, and I haven't played all that much of CK2 since its release. I've played, you know, a okay amount of it, but I'm definitely a lot more familiar with CK2, and I don't think that's ever going to change. Like, I have, like, 6,000 hours in that game or something. You decide to execute someone, you decide to imprison someone or to banish someone. Those have serious repercussions for the realm. You either get a load of money or you get a load of tyranny and, you know, you're now hated. Very, very profound decisions, whether to spare or kill a prisoner. Decisions in the decisions tab, like even the most mundane one, to look for a smith. That can, like, economically drain your entire empire, right? Because you can give, like, thousands of ducats to finding a nice sword for yourself. Very profound, very big decisions. Here it's like 2% bonus. Yeah, okay, cool. Buildings. Let's take a look at those, for example. You choose to build a barracks or something in CK2. Okay, fair enough. It's 100 gold, it's a 200 gold, whatever. You get like 50, 100 soldiers from that barracks. Fine. It's not the biggest deal ever, depending on your empire size and stuff. It's not the biggest thing ever, but, you know, you invest some money into it, you upgrade it, and all of a sudden your military power is now a lot more potent. Here it's like, okay, macro buildings, macro builder, barracks, 20% manpower. Alright, good, but manpower isn't soldiers, it's manpower. Mine, and they call it a mine. Slaves needed for local surplus, minus 5%. Local civilization level plus 5%. Is that what a mine does? Because I would have thought I would have gotten some money out of it or something, or some metal or something, but really? Okay, barracks. Fortress. No, okay, Fortress have a very direct military use, so, you know, let's not talk about those. They basically make sieging take longer, and the sort of the focal points of warfare. Slave estate. Okay, look, local slave output plus 30%, not a small amount. Local monthly food modifier plus 50%. Big thing. But it should be big, it's 134 gold, and it's gonna take me a long, long time to get there. Matter of fact, it's going to take me probably a couple of years to get to that amount of gold. And I can only build one of these every few years. These should be darn important, right? And then, you know, they're kind of not exciting, you know what I mean? Kind of just not exciting. The laws, I guess, are kind of nice. With punic reforms and all of those sorts of things, that's kind of nice. But then, okay, tribal assembly, senatorial endorsement, huge differences, right? Rome gains 6 tyranny, Rome loses some approval, and there you go. It changes the modifier. You go from losing corruption every month to gaining political influence every month. 5% versus 0.10%. For people that love min-maxing, this is great. Don't get me wrong. This is great. If you love min-maxing and you can spend hours paused making sure you have the correct start for Rome. Good. Is that fun for the average Paradox fan? I don't know. You be the judge, but a lot of these things seem sort of insignificant. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm sort of taking little kind of extreme examples here, and yes, some of the laws are very, very important. Like, one of them lets you make legions, standing armies. The game changes, literally, like, yeah, it's a huge deal, don't get me wrong, but in a sort of effort to add more depth and sort of more content to the game, a lot of these things just sort of become irrelevant. Look at these, like, for example, these are government slots. Monthly ruler popularity. Alright, pretty good. Loyalty of subject states. Pretty good. These are important things, right? It's because these were here for a while. These were here forever. Go over to, like, religion. Population assimilation speed plus 0.15. Cool. The Tomb of Romulus. Excellent. I'm just not feeling it, you know what I mean? Like, I can also remove it from the treasury, which there's like some actions I just don't understand currently, but I'll chalk that up to me just being inept at the game. Currently, like, I can destroy the Temple of Jupiter here. Why on earth would I ever want to do that? I mean, I appreciate the option. Speaking of option, AI settings, you can just turn off the AI. I love that, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love that. You can tweak the AI to your heart's content, and I full-heartedly support that. You can actually deny the AI the capability of starting new wars. How sick is that? You can turn this game into whatever the hell you want. And I love those kinds of options. And then, as profound and as game-changing as those things are, you then get stuff like this. Monthly ruler popularities plus 0.02%. Oh, not percent, points. Each month. I can't help the feeling that the game would have been better off with fewer technologies that are harder to get. And it's not like it's a grand strategy problem or a paradox problem or anything along those lines. No, it's just an Imperator Rome problem, because you take a look at the tech tree from Stellaris, some of the things there, I mean, not some of the things, 90% of the things there are very, very important. Even a simple 10% bonus to mining is crucial for the economy because it, you know, it drives your economy forward, and a 10% of 1,000 is a lot. Here, 0.02 popularity is laughable. And don't get me wrong, I understand that not every single tech option can be groundbreaking and game-changing, I understand that, but my point is that there is a lot of these things where you're doing things that you just don't see the point of doing, right? Like, okay, I've increased the tribesman output by 0.2%, but I've decreased the slave output by 0.1%. Alright, cool. I could have not done that, and the game would have been exactly the same as you know, as it is now. I want to add again that this is not the case for all of the mechanics, that this is just some, and problem is though, game sort of feels a little bit crowded now with all of these things. Not too complicated, not too like, I wish it was simpler or anything along those lines. No, it just seems a little bit crowded because look at all the things that I need to look at in this screen. There's so many things to mouse over and read all about and all of those things, but ultimately, so what, right? You know the point. Here's what I'm saying. Like, okay, culture, religion, and demography, and all those things, very important. Research produced 9.25. All right, I can't do anything with that information. Trade routes available. I can't do anything with that information. Culture, Roman, Hellenic. I can't do anything with that information from here. See what I mean? We produce cloth. Alright? I literally can't do anything with that information from here. Every 18 slave populations will produce an additional 1 cloth. Good to know. Good to know. We need more slaves in Rome to make more cloth and then export that, and you know, fine. But now I feel like I'm playing a sort of company management game with slavery. Doesn't feel like a grand strategy game. It feels more like, I don't know, like an Excel spreadsheet for economy mixed in with actual good grand strategy game elements. Now, Vicky 2 was kind of like this, even though I've never actually played Vicky 2 all that much, but I talk to a lot of people that adore that game. But even there, it was like, building a factory was a big deal, because not just did it transform your economy, the demography and the politics inside your empire would transform based on the number of factories and who ran those factories, right? Those were big deals. Here, the Roman Empire isn't going to be transformed by one additional barracks. It's not. Not that it should be, but yeah, I'm not saying remove the ability to build barracks. I'm saying that you're going to look at a lot of these things like, okay, cultural happiness of the Hebrews is 12%. Good, what can I do about it? Shockingly little. Shockingly little. You can let them become citizens. That'll get their cultural happiness up to 5%. Okay, what happens if I let them become citizens? Well, the modifiers change, and therein lies the crux. This is the design decision for EU4 and for Imperator Rome. Thankfully, it hasn't infected, quote-unquote, because I don't like it. I know some people love it. Again, this is almost entirely subjective. These games are now dictated by modifiers. You get modifiers absolutely freaking everywhere. Nowhere is it more obvious than here. And you might say, well, Juggernaut, you get these modifiers as well when you play Stellaris, and you have, like, you make them citizens or slaves or whatever. Yes, but there's a difference between local manpower +2, local manpower +4, and you are now going to be eaten and you are undesirable in my empire, versus you are now a fully fledged citizen, or you're now a slave and just do slave labor, right? Decisions like that in Stellaris reshape, well, first determine the fate of a whole species, and second reshape your whole empire. Decisions like this, although realistic, kind of, why? You know what I mean? Like, why would I... Let's take the Etruscans as a good example, because there's 21 of them. I can make them citizens, and now they're going to contribute to research, but they're also going to eat more food. But they're going to contribute less manpower. Alright. Cool. Is it considerably less? Not really. I mean, there's 291 Romans. Whatever I do with these isn't going to change all that much. To be fair, when I take all of Etruria, it's going to be a different story, but, you know, even then, picking one or the other doesn't, you know, it's just, it becomes almost a matter of choice. There doesn't seem like there's a objectively good or bad way of doing things in a lot of these situations. Min-maxing is one thing, but, like, If I were to turn all of the Etruscans into citizens, that'd be fine. If I were to turn all of them into, or keep all of them freemen, that'd be fine as well. It would influence the economy a little bit, fair enough. Research wouldn't be as high, but, you know, food consumption would be lower, and you're trading constantly one thing for another, to the point where it's just, you know, it's just like, doesn't matter, who cares? I have 2 bananas and 2 oranges, and you can either take one of each, or, I don't know, half of a banana and 1.5 orange or whatever, and at that point you're like, okay, whatever, I'm giving you half my fruit anyway. You know, just take what you want from me. So yeah. That said, though, as critical as I am of the game in that sense, it is a lot more fun to play. It is a lot more fun to interact with characters, with your empire. It is a lot more fun to lay plans and do things. See, I do think you should give the game another shot, because, you know, maybe the cultural thing is sort of hit and miss in some of these options, but economy's not, right? Fort maintenance, taxes, those are very important things. Military, very important things. Some of the laws, very important. Religion, very important. Managing tyranny and having enough support in the Senate and all of these things, important. It's not an easy game. It's not something you just let it play for itself, right? You need to learn. It has a learning curve now. You need to sort of master some of the skills that you need to effectively run any color on the map you see currently. So yeah, you know, there's a lot more to it, but bear in mind that a fair amount of it is just, you know, whatever. Not that relevant, I guess. Alright, that'll be all for this video. It's been 28 minutes of me rambling on about Imperator Rome. It's definitely better than what it was months ago, or even, you know, in the first days of its official release. It's definitely a heck of a lot better. Is it, you know, the best ever Paradox Grand Strategy game out there, and everyone should play this and nothing else? No. I think the game still needs work. I think the game needs some DLC, needs some more updates, and needs to sort of focus a little bit on what it wants to be, right? I get the feeling that the whole problem with Imperator Rome is that it's too unfocused. It wants to focus on Rome and the sort of ancient world interactions here between sort of Rome, Greece, Carthage, and I guess Egypt and the Seleucids to some extent, and the barbarians, but then it includes India. And India sort of remains like a black hole in terms of content, where this is nowhere near as unique as it should be. And, you know, it wants to focus on warfare and stuff, but yeah, then it sort of delves into EU4 style modifiers and stuff, an economy of that sort, and it wants to focus on character interactions, but then it's too bogged down by everything else that the character interactions are nowhere near as profound and as important as you might want them to be. So it's a bit all over the place still, and it's going in the right direction. It's getting better, but it's still a little bit all over the place, I think, and that's going to be a problem for this game in the years to come as well, I feel like. Though, it is getting better and better. It is, with each patch and next iteration, the game's becoming more fun to play. So I can only compliment the development team on that. They've taken what was a very questionable project and a questionable release, and turned it into something playable and something enjoyable, with some caveats and pinches of salt here and there, but, you know, it is kind of fun. So I would recommend that you give it a shot, especially because 2.0 is free. So yeah, and really a lot of these patches and a lot of these things that they've redesigned the game came with, you know, months and weeks of development time that you get to experience for free, right? It's not locked behind DLCs like a lot of things tend to be with Paradox. You do get quite a bit just for the base game itself. So yeah. Anyways, I guess that'll be it for this video. I haven't really done anything in Rome except show you a few things, but that'll have to do. I feel like it's sort of my obligation to talk about this because I've played the game initially and I cover Paradox games very, very regularly. So yeah, I guess that was my take on this. Very subjective, very first impressions-y. Maybe my opinion will completely change. Let's put all of that into one word, apparently. Maybe my opinion will completely change in a few days or in a few weeks after playing this, but first impressions are this video, effectively. Alright, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Have fun, take care, and bye-bye.